Okay, the recording has begun.
Okay, great. Welcome everybody to the annual meeting, an annual budget meeting of the 6th Taxing District this third day of March and in 2021. I'm Commissioner Langalis, and we have on our Zoom meeting Commissioner John Igmiri, Commissioner Mike Barbas, Property Manager Ed Carlson, Assistant Property Manager Jason O'Donnell, District Clerk Andrea Woodworth. And because this is our annual meeting, our first order of business is to vote to appoint a moderator and meeting secretary. And we're very grateful to former Commissioner Randy Avery, who has volunteered to be the moderator, and the secretary is Andrea Woodworth. So could I please have a motion to approve Randy as the moderator of the annual meeting and annual budget meeting?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, the motion approves. Randy, then could you please
Sure.
go on with the first order of business?
I will.
Thank you.
So the first order of business of the annual meeting is to hear a report of the commissioners on the previous year's budget and to review the minutes of the previous year. So
Yeah.
at whichever order you wish to take that is fine.
Okay, terrific. Thank you. I will start by approving, asking my fellow commissioners if they had the opportunity to review the minutes. Thank you for Mike passing them around. I did. I do not have any corrections to make. Mike or John, how about you?
No changes.
No changes either.
Okay, so Randy, do I ask for that motion? Or do you?
Actually, I would ask for it, which is if hearing no objections to the report of the previous annual meeting, all those in favor of approving the minutes of the previous annual meeting, say aye.
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 Opposed? Carries unanimously.
Thank you.
So is there any other business to come forward to the annual meeting before we get to the budget meeting?
Not for me.
None.
All right, so the annual meeting of the commissioners is now over, and we move to the annual budget meeting of the commissioners with, I believe the first item on the agenda there is to hear a report on the fiscal year just that we're in and coming to an end, a report on that fiscal year.
Right. You know what, actually, Randy, I think I made a mistake in the procedure.
Okay.
I would like to just give a quick little overview and identify some people, if that's all right, if I may.
Absolutely, of course.
Okay,
Go ahead.
So for the record and those in attendance, there are a few very good people who help keep the 6th Taxing District running annually, beside the commissioners. And I would like to acknowledge District Treasurer Gil Kiernan. He has an assistant, Candy, in the treasurer's office, Ed Carlson, who is our property manager, and Jason O'Donnell, who is assistant property manager, and under them, Jose and Luis, who work on all of our district properties. And then, of course, District Clerk of the Works, Andrea Woodworth. We have employees at the beach and lifeguards who work for us at the beach. We have employees at the railroad station, Bob and Joe. And we also have a whole volunteer fire department headed up by Todd DeCline. And if it weren't for the efforts of our volunteer fire department, our property taxes in Rowayton would probably be at least 10% higher. I would like to also recognize various volunteer nonprofit groups within Rowayton who are very important to the village of Rowayton and our community: the Rowayton Library, the Civic Association, the Rowayton Gardeners, the Historical Society, the Arts Center, Little League, Rowayton Tennis, Rowayton Paddle, Shakespeare on the Sound. And there are many groups that use the district properties throughout the year. During the pandemic, that use has been dramatically dropped off, but we are speaking in long-term generalities. And just to remind residents that the properties that the 6th Taxing District owns is the main property is our community center and library with the greenhouse and the paddle tennis courts. The Bailey Beach, of course, is sort of the beautiful jewel in the crown on the Sound. Pinckney Park as well on 5 Mile River. The Rowayton Arts Center is owned by the taxing district and operated by their volunteer board. The fire department and the hose company, which are on Rowayton Avenue. We manage the train station for the state of Connecticut. We also have a parking lot, Ambler lot, behind the retail establishments on Wilson and Rowayton Avenue. And we also have our dog park at the community center. So those are the properties that we manage, and we have domain, and your tax dollars do go to fund. And again, just to say how important it is that the Rowayton Volunteer Fire Department is a very important piece in keeping our taxes in the 6TD down and our mill rate lower than all the other taxing districts in the city of Norwalk. So I would like to thank all of the people that work for the 6TD. And I would also like to thank all of the volunteer groups in town that help make Rowayton such a wonderful place to live. Thank you. If anybody has
Thank you.
questions,
Thank you, Commissioner.
you're welcome. So now we can go on to the drier portion of the meeting.
It is indeed. All right, so the first item in the annual budget meeting is to hear a report from Mr. Kernan, the district treasurer, on the year that is concluded. So our budget years overlap with the annual meeting dates. So we're talking about the budget year that ended June 30, 2020. And so, Mr. Kernan, the floor is yours.
Randall, thank you very much. And thank you, Commissioners Tammy, Mike, and John. I appreciate it. And Randall, if you allow, I will go right through from the last year and propose the budget for the following year, if that's okay with the moderator.
Yes, it certainly is. Thank
Okay,
you.
very well. Thank you. I will share the screen. Please hold. Okay, thank you again, Randall. So quickly, I'm not going to go through, just a note, I'm not going to go through every number. We'll spare the audience, anybody who watches in the future, that the reports are being filed. So if anybody does want to dig into them, they're free to it. I will go over the important numbers, and I will use approximations. And like I say, Andrea and others will have the actual numbers behind it. So just that, I would like to make that note up front. So we did get our report back from the auditors from last year, and we knew as well before that the district's finances are in good health. The auditors recently issued a clean opinion of our 2020 financials with that year ended on June 30th of last year. We finished that fiscal year with a net increase in operating fund balances, and people will be pleased to know that the 2021 budget as proposed holds the increase in the district's portion of property taxes to less than 1%. We will be talking tonight about major one-time items that are proposed for improvements and enlargements of the Ambler parking lot, and for improvements in the communication systems at the Rowayton Fire Department. And I will kind of go through quickly a couple slides about previous years. Again, the district financial statements are audited by an independent auditor of O'Connor Davies LLP in Stamford, Connecticut. And they have released an unqualified opinion that the audit is fine. Okay, so a quick summary, an overall summary rather of the 2019-2020 results. The revenues less expenditures, including the transfer to capital, are 22,000 less than the previous year. And that's within the 10 to 15% of expenditures recommended by the auditors. Key variances, which we will note, include a little lighter revenue number than expected. Some of that was due to lower revenues at the beach. And we also had less expenses because of lower general government expenditures, as well as a little lighter number in personnel expenses. So the commissioners have a copy of this, and Tammy, this is
Yes,
cue you for
okay.
this.
So could I please have a motion to accept as concluded with the general fund revenue of 9,391 lower than budgeted, and expenditures were 86,857 lower than budgeted, increasing the general fund balance by $77,466. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Thank you.
And I would second it.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposition? Any abstention? Okay, Mr. Moderator, I think I took your job there, sorry.
It's not a problem.
It's so
Since
hard
it-
when I can't see you.
That's okay, since we're just making a record for posterity.
Yeah,
So who would like to take on the next item in the agenda? Will that be one of the commissioners that will report on it, or again, will Mr. Kernan report on it?
that will
The,
again be for treasurer.
Okay,
Okay. So we will move on to the forecast. And the year to date, actually, we're not finished with the 2021 budget year, as you know, that ends in at the end of June, and then we'll go through the fiscal 21-22 proposed budget. So the highlights for 2021 are that, and as you look at this screen, note that, since it is a fiscal year, 7 months worth, 58% of the year budget, and so that's why year-to-date numbers will reflect that. And so there isn't a great cause for concern if you're not seeing either 50 or 100%, just the general nature of the timing of both revenue and expenses. So the numbers are largely in line with expectations with revenues, as we'll be getting another chunk of our property taxes between now and the end of the fiscal year. Expenses likewise are roughly in line with expectations. You'll notice that the debt service, we're at almost 100% of that, just because the timing, again, that the major debt payments are two major debt payments, and they've already taken place. So there is the expenses of the public safety and parking. You'll notice that's a relatively low percentage number, and that's due to decrease in personnel for the most part at the railroad station, and guards there to reflect the lack of commuters. So anyway, and some of the other front expenses are front loaded with the higher numbers, as you may see. So the 2021 capital account, where generally speaking, the sixth taxing district preloads in anticipation of capital projects. And so in this case, we have set aside 72 at this time, the balance at this time. There have been some expenses for design work and legal fees for the projects. In this case, we have 72,000 and change set aside for Antler parking lot and Bailey Beach entrance and sidewalk of 166,000. We have other reserves in the amount of 215,000 for other projects. So, and you may note, and people may know from previous years, that after the hurricanes of, I believe it's 8 and 9 years ago, we have set aside $110,000 as a reserve that, knock on wood, has not been drawn on for that time. That just sits there on the balance sheet, if you will. So moving on to the proposed budget, if we can. As I mentioned, we entered the planning process with a surplus from the prior year for major capital projects. And what people mostly like to know, and sometimes people are concerned that the 6 taxing districts expenses are a major part of their property tax bills, but please note that they're only about 5% of our total property taxes. And we strive to keep that number as low as possible, as Tammy outlined it, with all the volunteers and all of that makes Rowayton what it is. So the 2021 proposed budget and a little review of previous years. You may note that I haven't drawn in the next year, but that will bring us back down to, it's actually closer to no increase at all, but I'm just terming it as 1%, less than 1%. So as I mentioned, the major one-time items in the budget are $185,000 for work on the entrances of Bailey Beach and $108,000 for the Ambler Park improvements. I'll expand on that a little more while you're not seeing some numbers. So we have decreased some revenue expectations for the following fiscal year based on expectations, particularly at the beach, that we will see less traffic. We all hope that that doesn't come to pass, but because of COVID, we are being very conservative in our revenue expectations, as well as rentals that we have for weddings and other events at the community center. So again, the 6 taxing district portion of our property taxes that we receive from the city of Norwalk account for 95% of total revenue districts, are proposed at 1.8 million and change, again, up less than 1% from the current fiscal year that we're in. And we've outlined what the commissioners have gone through with their budget expectations for the following fiscal year. Particularly noteworthy in this is that community grants appear to be down 52% or 31,000 and change, when in fact the previous grantees are receiving capital improvements. So while it's not an actual grant, the town is spending both $10,000 on some Pinckney Park improvements, as well as some Rowayton Arts Center improvements. So that's to be noted. And this is a detail of the community grants down by individual categories. So the library, a very important part of our community, has requested a 2.5% increase. Actually, I believe they might request a touch more, but the commissioners have decided to give them a budget rather of $226,000, up 2.5% from last year, and that's the only increase to speak of, relative increase. So there are two other major capital. Oops, do that. There are two other major capital projects. The first one being, as previously mentioned, the Ambler parking lot. We anticipate that we'll be requesting to use the city of Norwalk's own facilities to borrow against that. And the interesting thing in the amount of $300,000 to $350,000. The interesting thing about the effect on the operating budget for the year is that no payments are due in the year that it's borrowed. They're due the next year. So on the operating side, you won't notice that. And then in the first year of borrowing, first year of payments rather, the only expense is interest only for the expense. And so I will group the summary of that together with the other major capital project is an upgrade to the emergency communication system of the Rowayton Fire Department. That's being done statewide and it's mandated by the state of Connecticut. And that estimate is $200,000. So in this example, we will um, the borrowing, if approved by the city of Norwalk, approximately $500,000. And again, that will not affect the operating budget for 2021-22. But the following year, the interest payments will be approximately $25,000. And the second year of payments, the number will be about $49,000. And then it goes down a couple $1,000 per year, the 15-year term, until the loan is paid off. So with that, that concludes my presentation. If
All right, that's fine. Thank you. And I would, at this point, I'm going to proceed by inviting a motion to approve the proposed budget of the commissioners for 2021-2022. And after I receive a motion, we can ask for discussion or any further discussion on the motion. So would anyone make a motion to approve the 2021-2022 budget as proposed by the commissioners?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Second.
All right. So is there any further discussion on the motion as presented by the treasurer?
Yes, Randy, Mr. Moderator, I would like to just make sure that we make a motion to approve the borrowing, just sort of as noted in the minutes, so that when the motion is brought before the Common Council, they can see that the commissioners have approved the borrowing of $500,000, approximately $200 for the communications for the fire department, and approximately $300,000 for the Ambler parking lot.
All right, so perhaps we can make two motions. The first motion would be to approve the budget as a whole, as recommended by the commissioners, and then a second motion to specify the approval of the borrowing. So is there any further discussion of the budget as a whole as proposed for 21-22? Hearing none, I would ask for a vote. All those in favor of approving the commissioner's proposed 2021-2022 budget indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing no opposed, it passes unanimously. And so, Ms. Langelis, if you would just go ahead and repeat the second motion relative to the borrowing
Yes.
and state it as a motion, and then we can entertain it.
Yes, I would like to make a motion to approve borrowing of approximately $500,000 for financing the Ambler parking lot and the fire department communication equipment.
All right, having heard that motion, is there any further discussion of that motion? Hearing no request for further discussion, we'll call for a vote. All those in favor, say aye.
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 All those opposed? No opposition. That motion carries unanimously. Okay. The next item for business is to fund through taxation the budget just approved. So I would entertain a motion from the floor regarding funding this through the taxation authority of the district.
I make the motion to accept the budget as presented.
All right, is there any further discussion of the motion? All right, so now we are voting on whether to appropriate the funds necessary and sufficient to cover the annual budget approved that included the borrowing authorization also approved. Is there any further discussion of the appropriation? Hearing none, all in favor of the appropriation, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say nay. I hear no opposition, so this also passes unanimously. And I believe that the last item on the agenda is to set the date of next year's annual meeting. Unless there's any other special business before the budget meeting that we wish to hear? Okay, hearing none. Is there a date proposed by the commissioners for the next annual meeting?
Yes, the date of Wednesday, March 2nd in the year 2022 at 7:30 p.m., hopefully in person and not on Zoom. The pandemic is over.
This has
That
worked
would-
well. It's nice.
That would be nice. All right, I'll accept that description as a motion. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? None opposed. So at this juncture, we have reached the conclusion of the business of the annual meeting of the district commissioners. I don't know whether the commissioners intend to conduct any other business in this meeting. And if so, you can indicate. But the annual meeting has concluded.
Well, thank you. Randy, we very much appreciate your being our moderator. You did a wonderful job, and it was a tough crowd tonight, but
Yes,
we
it was.
to keeping the taxing
You got
district
all dressed up too.
going in good order, right? I know you look very nice. So the commissioners maybe just want to mention a few other things outside of the annual meeting, just a little bit of district update. All who are in attendance are welcome, of course, to stay on the Zoom call if you want, or if you prefer to sign out, feel free.
Well, thank you. I will accept your invitation to sign out.
All
And
right.
I wish the commissioners and all the members of the district staff my best.
Well,
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Take
Bye-bye.
care. Bye-bye.
All right, so my fellow commissioners, just a couple of things that I would like to bring up to make sure that are in the record. The composting program at the community center has been a large success. And part of that success that we are now experiencing, we are going to go from the small totes that people put their compost material in to large totes, in essence, large trash cans. And because of that change to the large bins, we will now change the pickup date for the composting company because they need a different truck to pick up the large bins. So drop-off day will now be Monday at the community center, and the compost waste will be picked up on Tuesday. Previously it was on Wednesday for pickup on Thursday, but just to reiterate, and this will start next week. Correct me if I'm wrong, Jason. I believe that the city of Norwalk is dropping off the large totes this week, and we will then begin accepting compost only on Monday for pickup on Tuesday. Jason.
My understanding as well.
Okay, very good. If that should change, please send up the red flag. Okay, and thank you.
Excuse me if I may ask a question about that.
Yes,
Currently, the bins are sitting outside the community center to be dropped off at any time. Are you saying that going forward, the bins will not be there other than on Monday?
well, the bins will be there, but we really only want to encourage residents to bring them the day before because we don't want all that compost material sitting there all week.
Okay, fair enough.
Okay. And I believe that we're going to leave them in place during the week, but we would prefer to just have people drop off only one day a week. And especially in the summer when it gets hot and we get flies and perhaps even, other rodent type critters that we really don't want to encourage at the community center.
Understood.
Yes, and so we'll make an email blast about that announcement as well. And then the pond aerator update. I can speak to it, Jason or John, if you guys want to add anything, but we are going to go ahead and approve an aeration system. And we hope to get that project underway in April to eliminate the duckweed. It's probably not going to be a perfect solution because really the pond needs to be dredged. But we, the 6th Taxing District, have been asked by our residents for years to try to resolve this issue. And the city wants to cooperate, but they don't really deem the project as worthy as maybe we do. And so we're going to venture out on our own and do it just as a taxing district. Would either of you like to add anything to that?
Excellent summary.
Thank you.
It's underway.
Okay, great. Jason, thanks for all your help on that. Just want to mention a little bit about sidewalk projects. We talked about this at the last commissioners meeting. The capital budget for the city of Norwalk is not completely yet finalized. We think that there is money in there for continuation of some sidewalk on Rowayton Avenue, primarily from the light at Cudlip Street going toward town to about Pinckney Park. But we're not sure, when the Common Council approves the final capital budget, if that money will be approved. We hope it is, and 2 years out, there's money for the sidewalk design on the Witch Lane, Hunt Street down to Rowayton Avenue. But that's a couple of years out. So, but we keep asking the city for that, and we hope that in the future it is built. Pickleball people are getting into high gear to put 3 pickleball courts at the railroad station. They've met with Jason and Ed and me, and where we got the okay. And there's also now a husband and wife team that are very interested in making a cafe at the station building at the railroad station. And we are in favor of trying to facilitate that possibility. We're working with the state and the person of interest on details. So more to follow, but just so people might know that there could be some good eats at the train station eventually. So that is all that I have. Would anybody else like to chime in?
Nope. Did an excellent
Yeah.
job there, Tammy.
Thank you, John.
Tammy, I just wanted to say on the sidewalk business, the Rowayton Avenue, there is a timeline. I think it's like April 13th by which the city has to finalize their capital budget. So that vote is coming. And for people who are concerned, obviously they should contact their representatives on the city side, including the mayor and the 2 common council members who represent Rowayton, Tom Livingston and Lisa Shanahan. On the drainage project at Bailey Beach, we've been working on for a long time. We supposedly were getting a visit from DEP at the state, but I have yet to hear if they actually did come. And we are making progress on this Ambler parking lot improvement and expansion. And we have a conference call with our attorneys next week, and we will be filing with the city shortly, but we now have to do a CAM application. It's like, more hoops than you can count, but it is
really?
progressing.
Oh, what happened to just maintenance as of right?
That's Bailey Beach. Ambler is a more complicated entity.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I think the visit from DEP was to see if we did qualify for the maintenance as of right.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Mike. Anything else?
I think that's it.
Okay. Would Ed or Jason or Andrea, if you have anything to report, please do it now, because we will not have a March, 3rd week in March meeting this month. We're going to let this annual meeting take a substitute for that.
I don't really have anything. I'm getting requests for people to, like Temple Shalom wants to have a service in Pinckney Park. And Mike's response to somebody else who had asked to do something in Pinckney Park is, you're going to wait to see what happens with COVID, I guess, whether or not we can approve things like that.
Yes, I think so. We're trying to go with, the state regulations, and watching those, and, gatherings of X number of people. But in general, do you know how large the Temple Shalom services are?
I don't. I think maybe 30.
Well,
I don't know. I mean, that's just a guess. I've never been down there to see. I
yeah,
can ask them.
that would be helpful.
Okay.
Mike and John, if it's around 30 people, would you be all right with the Temple Shalom service as they've had them in the past?
They have to distance.
Yes, of course. Mike and John,
Yes,
okay with that?
I defer to John.
Okay,
that's fine.
okay, I'm fine with it too, Andrea, if it's kept to, you know, a manageable number of people socially distanced and no parking on the grass, etc.
Of course, no. So I'll write up this little bit as a very short minutes for the March meeting. Is that what you want me to do?
Yes, please.
What we've just talked about or what you've talked about?
Yes, thank you.
Okay,
I have nothing really to report, Tammy.
Okay, Jason?
Interviews are well underway for lifeguards, and so we'll be finalizing the staff there and for the beach director hopefully soon. And other than that, I think, yeah, everything else has been moving pretty smoothly.
Okay, terrific.
that for the Bailey Beach director you were talking about? Yes, okay.
Yep, and Andrea, we're going to ask you to please send letters to the grant recipients
Mhm.
as well as those that might not have received a grant. We'll give you the details.
Okay,
All
did that last year, so.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. We'll do it again. All
Okay.
right. Then if not, anything else? Anybody?
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Thank you, Don. I was waiting.
All right.
In favor?
Aye,
Any opposed? No.
Jason.
No.
Hearing no
I
opposition.
abstain.
Jason, we hope your family's doing well and getting bigger sooner.
Absolutely.
I'm sure.
Terrific. All right. Well, thank you very much, everybody.
Thanks.
Thank you,
Thanks,
Tammy.
everyone.
All right.
Thank you, Mike. Thank you,
Bye, guys.
John.
Take care.
Bye-bye, everyone.
All right.
Bye, guys. Thank you.
Thank you, Bill.
You're welcome. Thank you, Tammy.
You're welcome.